Hello, welcome to natemareflix. I am Nate, you are you, and I'm so excited you could be here because today we are launching a new series on the channel. We are going to be looking at each of the films in the Psycho franchise and giving you all sorts of cool little tidbits about them, reviewing them, breaking them down, and it will all culminate in a series or franchise ranking. And if you love this type of content as I do, and if you love horror as much as I do, then please go ahead and subscribe because we're going to be doing a lot of this in 2021. I already have designs on giving the same type of treatment to the Alien franchise and the Halloween franchise, as well as any other beloved horror franchises that you guys would like to see me review each entry and then do a ranking of them. But we have to start with Psycho, Alfred Hitchcock's masterpiece, a classic, one of the most impactful films in the horror genre, the granddaddy of all slashers. But we're gonna do it with a little twist. This won't be a straightforward review because there are so many reviews of this classic film on YouTube already, and I had so much fun researching the film that instead, I'm gonna present to you my top 10 Psycho facts. Number 10 is the film's rating. Now, when this movie came out, the MPAA was not yet a thing, so its first rating was, well, unrated, kind of. But in its lifetime, it's actually owned a PG rating, a PG-13 rating, an R rating, and even a 15 plus, all depending on the locale and the time in which it was being rated. Of course, when this movie came out, it outraged some, it disturbed many, and it terrified almost everybody because it was so extreme for its time. And Alfred Hitchcock, some would say he was lucky to get all of this on screen, but I say no, not lucky, ingenious, because him and Joseph Stefano, the screenwriter for the film, actually put their heads together and authored a bunch of disturbing, grisly, and over-sexualized scenes that they knew would never make it to the screen, just so censors would have something to cut out while leaving the quintessential Psycho moments. That is right, they needed that shower moment, of course. It is the key ingredient to Psycho, but censors might have balked at it otherwise, so they came up with all this stuff, this outrageous content that they had no desire to actually film, just so censors would roll their eyes, hack it to pieces, and then the shower scene would look timid by comparison. It is such an amazing little strategy by Hitchcock, and boy did it pay off because he got everything that he needed to be in the film to be in the film. Number 9 is the film's coloring or lack thereof. Now, many people might look at Psycho and be like, isn't black and white because it's old, bro? No, that is actually not the case. Plenty of films were being in color at this time. Alfred Hitchcock had already made movies in color himself, so why then did he opt to go black and white? Well, for one, the movie's content, its extreme visuals were part of it. He thought the gore would be more digestible for a large audience if it was in black and white. But also, he was being a savvy businessman. Hitchcock looked around and saw a bunch of B movies being made for cheap in black and white, and audiences didn't seem to care. They were showing up in droves, forking over their money, and these B movie makers with way less talent than Hitchcock were getting rich off of black and white films, even though color alternatives did exist. So he's like, what would happen if somebody of my prowess and my know-how made a black and white film, made a really great thriller in black and white? And that is what he did with Psycho, and it paid off, and it paid off more than you may even know, but more on that in a bit. Number 8 is all of the nods to Psycho and Halloween, and I included this one because there are still a lot of misguided folks out there that consider Halloween to be the big first mainstream explosion or validation of slashers in the zeitgeist, but it's simply not the case, and John Carpenter himself would tell you as much. When you look at Halloween, there are so many blatant nods and homages to Psycho, which obviously influenced Carpenter's work. I mean, he hired Jamie Lee Curtis because it was stunt casting, because Jamie Lee's mom, Janet Lee, played Marion Crane in Psycho. Nobody knew that she would go on to be the biggest scream queen in all of horror. It was just a cool way to be like, yes, Psycho meant so much to me and really laid the groundwork for this film, Halloween. That is why Jamie Lee Curtis got the role. And then you look at Dr. Loomis. He's one of the most beloved characters in all of horror, but his name is Sam Loomis. He is named after Sam Loomis in Psycho. Nurse Marion Chambers, Marion from Marion Crane. There are so many instances of just paying respect to Psycho in Halloween, and I think that that is awesome, but it's also been done in other films. I mean, Friday the 13th just outright steals left and right from Psycho. Reanimator, they copped the music from Psycho, and countless other films have outright borrowed or stolen from the film. It is amazing the legacy that this film has, and it has really made horror better for decades after itself. Number 7 is Psycho's diabolical origins. We talked about people ripping off Psycho, but what if I told you Psycho itself was a ripoff? Well, Hitchcock detractors would have you believe as much. Many believe that he outright stole from rival Henry Georges Clouzot in his film Diabolique. Now, Diabolique came out in 1955. It was shot in black and white. It was really gritty and unnerving and had to deal with these murders. One murder actually transpiring in a bath scene. Now, of course, there's no bath scene in Psycho, but there is a shower scene, and the commonalities do not stop there. Hitchcock never confirmed that he actually set out to lift anything from his rival, but if you know the ego of Hitchcock, seeing people praise his rival's work, it's not too far-fetched to think that he would look at it and be like, I can do something similar to what you did, but I can improve upon it, I can best you, and I can make you look bad with a superior film. And that could have really played into why the film was in black and white when we talked about the other aforementioned reasons that Hitchcock gave for making it black and white. I really think there might be something to this, guys. Comment below. Do you think, knowing what you know about Alfred Hitchcock, that he may have lifted stuff from Diabolique just to piss someone off and to show his talent? Number 6, Hitchcock's big payday. Now, if he did steal anything from Diabolique, then you have to consider this the theft of the century, because Hitchcock made so much money off of Psycho. The studio did not expect this thing to work. It was disgusted by the film's premise, by the source material, and it thought that critics would label this thing a disaster of bad taste. They did not believe people would turn out and that it would ultimately fail at the box office, so they weren't about to give Hitchcock his going rate of $250,000 a picture. Instead, they're like, you know what, Hitch, you can have 60% of the film's gross. Wow, that worked out for Hitchcock because the film did so freaking well that instead of $250,000 like he would normally get, he walked away with $15 million. $15 million in 1960. Put it in perspective, that would be over $120 million in today's money. Whew. Good for you, Hitch. Number 5 is the evolution of Norman Bates. We talked about all that money Alfred Hitchcock got, and you could say he earned it because he knew how to adapt the source material. In Robert Bloch's novel, Norman Bates is actually supposed to be a very unlikable guy, and he even looks the part. He's said to be short, fat, and homely. Instead, we got Anthony Perkins, this pretty spry, young-looking guy. He's pretty charming. He seems pretty naive and innocent. He almost seems like a Jimmy Stewart character, and we all love Jimmy Stewart, right? But this guy is a monster on the inside. His psychology is all messed up. He is the titular psycho, and that is so much more intriguing, so much more terrifying, and so much more memorable than having the guy that seemed like a monster turn out to be a monster. So good on you, Hitch. It obviously played into this film's impact and legacy, and it's part of why Norman Bates is considered one of the best horror villains of all time. I just can't see that happening if he looked like a nasty little curmudgeon. Number 4, Salt Bass is a liar. There was actually a time where people did not know if Alfred Hitchcock shot the shower scene. You heard me right. People did not know if the most famous scene from Psycho, the most famous scene in all of cinema arguably, was actually shot by Alfred Hitchcock. Now, this was all put to rest eventually as Hitchcock's actors came forward and said, we were on set for that. Saul Bass, yeah, he did a lot of filming for the movie. He had a lot of valuable contributions, but he's lying through his teeth if he tells you that the shower scene is his baby. That is not the case. Alfred Hitchcock did it, and thank goodness. Can you imagine if we never got that resolved? If this was a great mystery of cinema, this was like one of those poltergeist incidences where we don't know if Spielberg or Tobe Hooper was shooting the entire movie or certain scenes or who was responsible for what, I think that would kind of be a travesty, and luckily that is not the case. Thank God we know that the most famous scene from Psycho actually did belong to its director. Number 3 is all the secrecy revolving around Psycho's script. I mentioned that Robert Bloch wrote the novel, a novel that greatly impacted, entertained, and amazed Alfred Hitchcock. So he had to make it into a movie, right? But his name obviously carried a lot of weight. So in order to not run the price up on himself, he actually bought the rights to Bloch's novel under a pseudonym. And then once he had the rights, he bought up as many copies as he could so nobody else could read the novel and know the big twist at the end. Furthermore, once he went to make the film, not even his own cast and crew could know the ending. They were given bits of the script at a time. Nobody could know the twist because they did not want it to leak. And I thought that that was so fascinating because we know script leaks are a major problem for modern films, but you just don't hear about it with films from the 60s. So I thought that that was so neat, but also very interesting to think about like Anthony Perkins or Janet Leigh's agent coming to them and being like, hey, we have this script for you. But what did that script look like? How much did they know? Did they just show up for this thing because Alfred Hitchcock's name was attached to it? I find that so fascinating. Number 2 is the promotion of this film. Alfred Hitchcock did so many nutty, bizarre things that ultimately did pay off when you look at the marketing for Psycho. For one, he had a cardboard cutout of himself sent to each theater that would show Psycho, and on it, it pretty much said, hey, look, if you think you're walking into this theater a minute or two late, it ain't happening, especially if you think you're gonna show up 30 minutes late, because if you missed anything, my big twist is squandered. The whole thing is screwed and there's no point. So show up and be on time or don't show up at all. And in the lobby, there was a constant countdown of, hey, 10 minutes until Psycho time, 5 minutes until Psycho time, 2 minutes until Psycho time. And actually, before Psycho, movie theaters would just run movies constantly. They didn't necessarily have the set times. You'd show up, you'd pop in, grab some candy or whatever, and be like, okay, let's see what's going on. But Alfred Hitchcock wasn't about to allow that. So you had to know, okay, this thing shows at 7 o'clock. I need to be there on the dime or else I'm going to have to wait until 8:30 to see my movie. So he revolutionized cinema. But he also put out a 6.5-minute official trailer. My God, can you imagine? I mean, you think about trailers nowadays, people say it's too long, give away too much. This one didn't necessarily give away too much, but it was 6.5 minutes long. And it was basically Alfred Hitchcock giving you a tour of Universal Studios, and the tour winds up on the set of Psycho. He pulls back a shower curtain, and there is Marion Crane screaming, and then boom, Psycho covers her face because it's not actually Janet Leigh portraying Marion Crane, because she was only available for 3 weeks to shoot the film and was not available, so they had to use another actress, and of course they couldn't show her face because she's not the right actress, so that is why Psycho obscured her face. I don't know, there's just so much interesting stuff about this film when you look at the marketing and the way that it forever changed the way films were marketed and the way that movie theaters work as a whole. Number 1 is Bernard Herrmann's score. Did you know that the shower scene was originally supposed to be silent? Did you know that when Alfred Hitchcock first watched his final cut of the film without music, that he thought the film just didn't have it, that it lacked punch, and that it needed to be edited down and put on TV? So there you have it. The score itself by Bernard Herrmann saved the entire project and is the only reason that it went on to be a feature film in the first place. Many people consider Psycho their favorite horror of all time, and it almost wasn't even a movie. It was just a bit for his TV show. But Bernard Herrmann created an instant masterpiece, an instant classic with his crazy haywire string music, and he made that shower scene that much more potent, that much more powerful, that much more staining and lasting. His music makes Norman Bates feel like a real monster. It induces so much power into Norman Bates, and this movie just would not be the same without it. Alfred Hitchcock knew as much, and that is why he doubled the salary of Bernard Herrmann, and that is why for the rest of his life he would walk around saying that 33% of the effect of Psycho had to do with its score. So I just had to let you know that Psycho as we know it almost did not come to be. It was almost relegated to TV, and it's all because of the film's score that we got it as we know it. So there you go. Those are my 10 favorite facts about Psycho. Of course, go to the comment section and give me any other fun facts that you know about the film. And also subscribe if you haven't, and stick around because we're going to have a bunch of other Psycho content coming your way. We've still got Psycho 2, Psycho 3, Psycho 4, and the remake, and of course that ranking, I promise. Other than that though, you have a fantastic day. I'm Nate from natemareflix saying that's a wrap.